These fantasy players could break out this year, and you definitely want to have them on your fantasy and best ball rosters when they do. So be sure to be drafting them at their current price point. They're good values. They have a lot of data supporting it. We're going to go through that today. Do us a huge favor. If you play fantasy football, make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you drop a like on the video. It's free, it's easy, and it helps us out a ton. We're also trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. So if you can help get us there, that would be awesome. We super duper appreciate that. And like I said today, 5 breakout players that you've got to draft. You've got to draft these guys for one reason or another. And for each player, it's going to be an individual thing as to why. But the first one's going to be J.K. Dobbins. And with J.K. Dobbins, obviously, if you're playing in dynasty formats, there's going to be some risk with J.K. Dobbins past this year. However, if you look at the Baltimore Ravens situationally this year, they did not draft a running back. And that's probably going to be the single most important point that I'm going to make here. Because honestly, and I don't know about you guys, but I super expected them to draft somebody. I thought for sure they would.
I thought it was a lock. Yeah.
So, I mean, and they were being projected to take a running back everywhere, and it just didn't happen. So then you have to look pretty closely at that offense now. And when you're talking about the Baltimore Ravens offense, you cannot talk about it without talking about the switch in offensive coordinators this offseason. So obviously, Greg Roman was there before this season, and you know his style of offense. He's going to produce a lot from the tight end standpoint, the wide receivers, the running backs.
Okay, they run the ball a lot in Greg Roman's system, but it's a committee backfield, like a true committee backfield.
Not to mention you have Lamar. There was not what I'm getting at. Todd Monken, when you look at him, when you look at his style, completely different. Greg Roman was a pretty unique style of offense in the NFL.
Really one of a kind.
And when you look at Todd Monken at Georgia, specifically, here's a stat for you. His running backs had 74 targets over 15 games.
15 games last season, 74 targets.
So
wow.
That's 5 checkdowns per game to go around for these running backs. I think that number one prediction, you're going to see these running backs in Baltimore get a lot more involved in the passing game, namely J.K. Dobbins, because I do think that's not going to be a heavy committee like Greg Roman had. I think they are going to have a number one running back. When you look at the end of last season, it could and it probably will be J.K. Dobbins, who was 4th in the league in true yards per carry. He was very efficient, although he had some issues staying on the field, and obviously recovering from that ACL was pretty rough for him. And what we learned from that is that it really does take 2 years for these guys to come back from ACLs, which is why I'm being careful with Breece Hall and Javonte Williams this year. But J.K. Dobbins is past that now. J.K. Dobbins, when you watched him at the end of last year, it looked like he was getting back to a return to his old self. His juke rate last year was 2nd in the league. Breakaway run rate, 3rd in the league of all running backs. So dude,
that's not being 100% healthy.
The dude, I mean, exactly. He's going to be healthier this season. He's going to be there from week 1. He's going to be in an offense that will be less committee and can support and will support a workhorse back. J.K. Dobbins is capable of doing it. He's still the very talented back that came out of Ohio State. He's had an injury-riddled career, and like I said, past the season, we don't know with J.K. Dobbins. However, he's going as the RB 18 on Underdog Fantasy right now in your best ball drafts. You have to be taking him at that price point. You have to. And, I mean, honestly, you're getting him in such later rounds because all the wide receiver value is being pushed up the boards in these drafts. It's actually ridiculous. If you're flexing J.K. Dobbins, you are doing it and you're feeling good about it. That is a very, very good flex.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that you're going to hear an argument against J.K. Dobbins is going to be Lamar Jackson's rushing upside, which everyone knows. It's why he won MVP. One of the big reasons he won MVP.
We didn't actually know he had rushing upside.
However, with Lamar Jackson, you do have to take into account the fact that he has fought and struggled with injury over the last 2 seasons, and it has been because of his rushing upside. I mean, last year he had that fluky ankle thing when he was actually under pressure in the pocket, but you have to take that into account. I don't think they're going to run it with him as much. Now, they're still going to run it with him a lot, don't get me wrong, but they're not going to put him in harm's way as much as they have in the past. I think they're going to want to rely on Dobbins a lot more because, let's be honest, guys, going into the 4th year of your rookie deal as a running back, you're expendable on an NFL offense.
Josh Jacobs is expendable.
Yes,
if Josh Jacobs is expendable, then so is J.K. Dobbins.
And if Dobbins is this efficient, then they're going to want to use him as much as possible before his rookie deal is up. So that's just something to keep in mind. They're going to want to protect Lamar. When Lamar is on the field, Lamar wins you games, even if he's not running nearly as much as he has in the past. So Just be aware of that.
You've got the next two guys.
Yeah, so the next guy that I've got is going to be Jamir Gibbs, going currently, according to Underdog, at running back 14. And why, do you ask, are we being so aggressive with a rookie running back who's going into a saturated offense, whose production is mainly coming from receiving upside, and there's so many receiving weapons in the Lions offense already? Why? Well, the Lions replaced DeAndre Swift with Jamir Gibbs, and they spent a top 12 NFL draft pick on this guy to produce and to be a focal point in that offense. Okay. Now let's look at his production at Alabama. Efficiency metrics really at Alabama: 6.1 yards per carry, 10 yards per reception. Now I want you to listen here closely. Okay. I know we're going to do a research video on this in the future, but right now, you need to know that 10 yards per reception, really the benchmark being about 9 to 10 yards per reception for a college prospect going into the NFL as a running back, that metric, that number is what you want to look for when it comes to a very unique, special running back that's going to be a keeper on an NFL team and is going to be hyper efficient. I mean, think like Austin Eckler level efficient when it comes to the touches that he gets in an offense. Jamir Gibbs is at that level, okay? He is averaging 10 yards per reception in the Alabama offense. If you're closer to like 6 when it comes to receiving upside in college, there's not a ton of promise there that you're going to be able to create in the passing game as much. Now, 12.8% target share is the other thing that you want to look at here. He has more than 10% target share as a running back in the Alabama offense with Bryce Young. That is insane. Okay, so not only is he efficient when he gets targets in the passing game, but he's getting a significant volume of those targets in an already elite producing offense in Alabama. Now you're going into the NFL. How much does college production translate to the NFL? Not so much. There's not always a direct correlation, but with running backs, it's easier to predict.
Yep.
It's much easier to predict when you look at draft capital and efficiency. Yeah, exactly. Look, guys, the Lions replaced DeAndre Swift. They replaced DeAndre Swift, who is one of the most efficient receiving backs in the NFL, to go get Jamir Gibbs. DeAndre Swift produced as a running back 15 last year on a points per game basis when his snap share was 42nd in the league among running backs. What do you think Jamir Gibbs is going to do with actual respectable snap share?
Listen to this. This was a rookie running back while I'm not going to compare Jamir Gibbs and Alvin Kamara in every aspect of their game because they're different players, I think Jamir Gibbs maybe has the best route tree to come out of college since Alvin Kamara. Because Jamir Gibbs, if you look at his route tree, I mean, from a historical standpoint, it's very, very good. Very, very efficient in receiving game. And let's look at Alvin Kamara. Alvin Kamara, keep in mind, went in the 3rd round of the NFL draft, not in the first 12 picks. Even going in the 3rd round, when you look at his rookie year and how a receiving back translated to the NFL right away.
It's immediately
Alvin
with receiving upside.
Was 10th overall in weighted opportunities. That's running and passing combined. But he was 3rd in targets among running backs. Not to mention, he was 1st in receiving yards. He was 2nd in receptions. He was 2nd in total touchdowns. He was 7th in fantasy points per opportunity. And he was 4th. He was the RB4 in fantasy points per game in his first year in the NFL as a rookie, as a 3rd round draft pick.
All while being 44th in opportunity share.
Elite PPR running backs do not require a significant amount of volume in the run game to produce as an elite fantasy asset. Last season,
PPR leagues.
Actually, Alvin Kamara, has he ever broken 1,000 rushing yards? No, I already know the answer. No. He hasn't. No. Last season, DeAndre Swift, with his limited volume, only had 540 rushing yards, and he still produced as a running back 15 on a points per game basis. Give me Jamir Gibbs at running back 14 all day.
Shoot for the stars, baby.
Yeah, shoot for the stars. And this is really going to tie into the next guy that we're going to talk about, who I've already mentioned, and that's DeAndre Swift.
You're getting a healthy dose of
the Eagles offense. This is a healthy dose of me. And I would love to hear some pushback. Like, I'm serious. I like talking to you about this.
They're not pushing back.
Okay, so with DeAndre Swift, like I already said, 42nd last season in snap share. Everyone knows that the Lions just, for some reason, hated DeAndre Swift last year.
Dan Campbell was like, we're going to go out there and crush some skulls, and then we're going to ruin DeAndre Swift's career.
Yeah. And in all seriousness, I think one of the main reasons that DeAndre Swift got less opportunity than we predicted is that he's just not as good of a true runner as we thought he was. He doesn't see the spaces that we wanted him to be able to see and really, just be able to do what they wanted him to do in that offense. He didn't.
His vision is lacking.
His vision is. Thank you. His vision is lacking.
He can't use his pupils as on the field like you want him to. He can't see things. Sorry.
I love how I extend everything much longer than it really should.
I know.
I
And
can always tell when you're looking for a word that you can't find.
Thank you, because I just make it longer than it should be.
C is the word. Wow.
Last season, all that being said, DeAndre Swift averaged 5.5 yards per carry, and he was third in fantasy points per opportunity. His efficiency is insane. Second in yards per touch, sixth in target share, fifth in yards per route run, fifth in breakaway run rate, and second in yards created per touch.
Is that good?
That's good.
That's very, very, very good. So let's just do a little bit of math here, okay? So DeAndre Swift is currently going at RB 23 according to Underdog. Last season, in DeAndre Swift's worst season ever, in an overly saturated offense where the Lions utilized him less than I think they should have, he still produced on a points per game basis as the running back 15.
But you're going in the T. Higgins circle now.
Now,
what's the difference?
He missed 3 games, which I was going to touch on. He missed 3 games. In best ball, you're shooting for upside, okay? So DeAndre Swift still last season produced as a running back 1, I think 5 or 6 times. And now he's going into an offense where the Eagles trade for him, where Miles Sanders leaves. And on top of bringing on DeAndre Swift, they bring on Rashad Penny. What does everyone in the fantasy and dynasty community know about Rashad Penny? He doesn't last.
That he plays all season every year?
No, it's actually the opposite. He doesn't play. Oh. So
I didn't know that.
Tell me this. What do you think is going to happen to DeAndre Swift in an offense where they are going to utilize him and he is replacing Miles Sanders? He's probably going to get the same amount of opportunity because Rashad Penny, I'm sorry, I'm going to predict injury. He's going to get injured.
How dare you?
And it's going to be DeAndre Swift and
bold.
It's going to be DeAndre Swift and Kenneth Gainwell.
That's bold of you.
In that offense. So with DeAndre Swift being valued as running back 23 and you seeing that he still produced as running back 15 on a points per game basis last year, why is he going currently at RB 23 when his ceiling is so much higher?
Because he has failed to stay healthy for a full season?
Okay, so let's not look at a points per game basis then. Let's look at what DeAndre Swift did as a straight up
let's look it up.
Final running back.
All right.
Running back 21, which is still higher than running back 23.
So I mean, by 2 spots.
Yeah.
Like, look.
And he's going into an offense where they're clearly going to utilize him more.
And I'm pushing back for the sake of pushing back because I do think he's a fine value at RB23, and I historically have been the biggest DeAndre Swift.
He's been the biggest, which is he hates him because he screwed him over.
So many times. I'm done getting burnt. Why? Why are we going to count on DeAndre Swift to stay healthy? We need to use the Rashad Penny argument. We want to say with T. Higgins, you can't say points per game matters because he didn't play a whole season.
Because why
does that not apply to DeAndre Swift?
Because Rashad Penny actually misses significant amounts of games. He misses like 8+ a season. Swift is missing 3 games. No more than 3 games.
So exactly like T. Higgins.
So T. Higgins.
Swift is getting hurt in the middle of games and then playing half a game.
T. Higgins is a wide receiver 2 in his own offense. DeAndre Swift is the running back 1 in an offense that runs the ball more often than not.
Overdrafted.
And he went to a new situation. Had T. Higgins gone to a new situation, you can completely reevaluate what T. Higgins' value would be, and you could use the points per game argument because you could say, oh, now he's going to be in a new situation. When you look at what he's doing on a points per game standpoint, nothing changed for him. This is a big change. You're talking about going from the Lions, who admittedly had a very good offense last year, but to, again, one of the better offenses in the NFL. Like, it's probably a slightly jump up, but it's probably a slight jump up. But at the same time, I think the Lions had a good enough offense to where he could have produced there, absolutely. But he did. I mean, he was so efficient. And when you're talking about going to the Eagles, there are going to be a couple big questions for me. Can he stay healthy? Can Rashad Penny stay healthy? Actually, that's it.
Well, does Jalen Hurts check the ball down?
Yeah, no, actually, you're right. Because I mean, if you look at last year, Jalen Hurts didn't check the ball down a whole lot. So I get it.
If that's the case, then why did they bring on DeAndre Swift? And that's what I'm saying.
Because they got him for
if they really didn't think it was that big of a deal, then why didn't they just ride with Rashad Penny and Kenneth Gainwell?
Why did they not ride with
This
Cam?
is kind of the same idea as J.K. Dobbins too. I mean, you're going with a running back going into the fourth year of his deal. You pay a 5th round pick for him, and he's expendable.
Georgia players only.
He's expendable. DeAndre Swift is an expendable asset in the Eagles offense who are trying to make a run for the Super Bowl again this year, who really, they own the NFC. They do. They do.
Yeah. If they were in the AFC, they get crapped on. I'm just kidding. I want to piss off Eagles fans. All right, I'm done hearing you talk. You got the next guy.
Okay, thank you. I didn't think it was ever going to come to me.
I didn't either. I'm looking at our waveform, Simon. You don't have a lot on here, man.
No.
You fill it up.
Thank you.
In fact,
no, I'm really good. Jerry Jeudy next. He's being drafted as wide receiver 21, and I see a lot of people talking about it. He's a good value here. Jerry Jeudy last year, however, only had a 20.8% target share, which wasn't great. The good thing if we look at his snap share, where he's coming from the slot. In PPR leagues where you're getting a point for every reception, you want the guys that are playing in the slot. They're going to be utilized more often, and maybe they're not going to do as much per reception. They're not going to be as efficient. He's going to get the volume. Jerry Jeudy, if you look at his production premium compared to the other wide receivers on the team, he's much better than anyone else they have. They're better than Cortland Sutton, better than Tim Patrick, who didn't play last year. KJ Hamler did nothing. They didn't have Javonte Williams. Jerry Jeudy is the guy there, and Sean Payton is going to use him. Sean Payton loves using his weapons. Speaking of Sean Payton, Russell Wilson was horrible last year. Sean Payton with Drew Brees, when Drew Brees was playing with him, from 2009 to 2018. Thank you for getting these stats, Nathan. Yep. Drew Brees averaged 613 attempts per game for 4,800 yards. 4,818.
Is that good?
Last year, Russell Wilson only had 483 attempts and 3,524 yards. And so our argument here is that Sean Payton is going to learn, even when Drew Brees was older, even when he was losing his mobility, he was still able, in Sean Payton's offense, to create. He was still able to produce at a highly effective level. And we really hope, we've seen what Russ can do in the right system. Well, Sean Payton has the system, and he's going to use him. In that system, Jerry Jeudy, we are willing to bet, is going to be extremely efficient. Last year, from weeks 7 to 18, Jerry Jeudy played 8 games. Yes, he got hurt. Same thing as DeAndre Swift, same thing as T. Higgins, everything we were just talking about. In those 8 games, Jerry Jeudy averaged 18.3 points per game over an 8-game sample. So it's not like we're extrapolating too heavily here. So Jerry Jeudy does have the upside. He can be one of those guys. He can be heavily efficient. And we are placing our money. We're putting our cards down. We say, in Sean Payton's offense, Jerry Jeudy is going to be that guy.
Yeah, and I don't think Drew Brees, I mean, Drew Brees is obviously one of the all-time greats of the quarterback position. We're not saying Russell Wilson is going to get to the averages that Drew Brees had from 2009 to 2018 because there's a significant gap between those two guys. I think there's a fair middle ground where there's a significant amount of more attempts that Russell Wilson is going to have in that offense next year that's really going to help the receiving room, specifically Jerry Jeudy next year because of Sean Payton. So
I am personally not buying any of Jerry Jeudy because Sleeper told me that Tim Patrick is the best wide receiver.
Good point. Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah.
Guys, I mean, the sleeper dude, the sleeper alert guy was looking at his dynasty roster. He's like, crap, I've got Tim Patrick on my team. He's like, wait a minute. I could just send a sleeper alert and sell him. Last guy, Treylon Burks. Treylon Burks, we don't have a ton of statistics on him, honestly. We could go back and pull his college stuff, but that's not going to do a whole lot for our argument. Treylon Burks, a guy that played in limited stretches last year. Do not forget the guy has mid-first round draft capital. We'll start there. He has a heavy team investment. They shipped off A.J. Brown and replaced A.J. Brown with Treylon Burks. A.J. Brown always played a very big role in that offense. Now Treylon Burks, obviously, starting last year, transitioned to the NFL, we always knew he was going to be a little bit more of a raw prospect. You couple that with his injuries, and he obviously had an up and down year last year. However, he steps into the scene this year as the clear wide receiver 1 in Tennessee. He is ready to take the next step. We're going to bet that he is. Not to mention, you're getting him as the wide receiver 36. He is the wide receiver 1 on his team. He is a first-round draft pick. He is going into his sophomore season where you typically see a pretty good jump for these rookie wide receivers. And he is going as the wide receiver 36, meaning you're getting him where? In the 6th, 7th, 8th round of your best ball drafts? Sign me up. The upside for Treylon Burks is extremely high. Our good friend and close mentor and colleague, franchise guy,
father figure,
who we messaged on Twitter, he didn't message us back. That's pretty much our relationship. He says he's a mix of Deebo Samuel and A.J. Brown. And honestly, those were the 2 comps you were getting pre-draft, so that makes a lot of sense. Now, obviously, from a performance standpoint, we've yet to see that because he's so young. However, again, at the price point that you're getting him at and the ceiling that he has, coupled with the team investment, the skill set, the wide open wide receiver room from an opportunity standpoint, Treylon Burks is a very, very good value in these rounds of your best ball draft. So again, those are 5 breakout players that you need to be drafting on your fantasy teams this year. Do us a favor, like the video, make sure you subscribe. We'll see you later. Deuces.